Hey guys, it's Jim here, and welcome to episode number 1 of a new mini-series I am so excited about. We're going to be building a partscaster S-style guitar all the way from the ground up. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the planning process in case you're considering building your own custom guitar, things that you should keep in mind when you are selecting parts. We're going to be going over all the parts that I'm going to be using for the build, and finally referencing some of the tools, because there's certain things that you're going to be limited on depending on what you have available to work with, and you can save yourself a lot of headache if during the planning section you take that into account. All the parts that we're going to be using for this build are from Guitar Anatomy in the UK, who are making this entire series possible to begin with. You can get Strat style parts there, T style parts there, even some offset style parts, whether you're looking at necks, bodies, hardware, electronics, or even some luthier supplies. I would definitely recommend checking them out. There will be a link in the description down below. Without further ado, I'm going to show you the parts that I chose, why I chose them, and some things that you should consider when you're picking out your own. First, I went with an SSS route. It could be argued that you'd have more flexibility in the long term if you wanted to change things up to go with an HSS, meaning you'd have a route for a humbucker in the bridge. I know I'm probably not ever going to want to do that, so I was totally cool with that. Plus, I love this finish. This is a British racing green. The next thing that you have to take into account is whether or not you have guide holes or slots, or the two studs, if you go with the 2-point vibrato system for the bridge, already on the guitar. As you can see on this one, there is nothing, so I'm going to have to do that on my own here. That's going to require either a drill press or some other way to ensure that the holes are going to go in straight. Anything that's angled whatsoever is going to lead to instability with the guitar's tuning. That's not something you want to deal with. So if you don't have the tools or you're not comfortable doing that, make sure that whenever you order a body, it's already routed correctly for that, and you won't have anything to worry about because you'll be able to drop the bridge right in. You're also going to need a neck plate and 4 screws to attach the body to the neck, as well as strap pins for both the top horn and the base of the instrument. Quick piece of advice: order the pickguard and the body from the same place, because they're not always cut exactly the same, and you could have fitment issues if you don't do that. Now, since the body is not pre-drilled in the bridge, I was able to choose whatever I wanted to, and I ended up going for something a little bit different, for me at least. I went with the Wilkinson 2-point vibrato system. I really dig this one because you can really fine-tune the arm the way you like it. There's a little Allen screw there on the base of the block itself where you can adjust the tightness of it and find the sweet spot. I dig that. That's really cool. But to install that, we're going to need these guys. These are our 2 bridge posts. We want to make sure that we're getting the scale length correct, which I'll go over when we're actually attaching the bridge to the body in a future video, but also that we're going in straight when we are drilling the holes so that these can fit into them. That is paramount. If you do not do that correctly, you will always have problems with the guitar afterwards. You'll have to replug and start over again. And trust me, if the guitar is already finished, that can be a big pain. Well, generally speaking, places that sell aftermarket bridges are going to include these extra parts that you need to finish the installation. Guitar Anatomy does, but that's not always the case, so double check if you do get your stuff from elsewhere. But you need these 3 springs. These are going to connect from the actual block of the vibrato unit itself to this metal claw. The metal claw is going to mount in the rear cavity at the top of it via these 2 screws right here. You're also going to need one of these plates and the 2 screws to install it. The output jack is going to connect to this, and it will be installed right there. This bag has all the wires and electrical components that we're going to need, except for the pickups, which are in a separate box. But I want to show you exactly what you need. For a traditional S-style build, you need 3 250K potentiometers. But this is an important little detail here. When you're ordering your plastics, make sure that they're sized correctly for the style of potentiometer that you get. If you get import alpha style, you're going to need a different size for the actual knob versus if you get American spec CTS. In this little baggie, We have this. This is a resistor that's going to go in between the volume control and the tone control. This is rated at 0.0047 UF. And for me, it's standard for a Stratocaster. I'm cool with it. These guitars are pretty bright as it is. However, you do have the option of going with a lower value. Now, why would you want to do that? It all depends on how you personally interact with your volume control. If you're somebody who wants to retain more high end and have the fall off be much more gradual and not so abrupt, you can go with a lower value, 0.0022 or even 0.0010, and that's going to let you retain more high end as you roll off the volume control. You're absolutely going to need one of these. This is a 5-way selector switch. That's going to be where you hook up your pickups and then connect all of it to your potentiometers. And since I'm building this all from scratch, I know what I'm doing. I've done this a lot, but if you're first timer, they do give you a full wiring diagram to work with. Another thing that I'll need, because I am making this harness totally on my own, is extra wiring. Typically what you want to do is black for ground, white for hot. And last but most certainly not least, when it comes to the electronics, the pickups. I went with the Fuzzy Duck Silvers this time. I really enjoyed the Fuzzy Duck Golds in the T-style guitar, so I thought I'd try something a little bit different and something a little bit lower output, because you can always make up for lower output. I'd rather have the clarity that is typically associated with a lower output pickup and then add gain later. It's much harder to do things the other way around. This leads us to what I feel is the most important part of any guitar build. This is going to make or break whether or not you really bond with an instrument or not, at least in my experience, and that's the neck. We got our work cut out for us on this one because I'm going to shape this neck. When we do the video about the neck, I have a custom template. We're going to go over how to get rid of the paddle and shape a neck on your own and make it smooth. But this neck is awesome. It's got stainless steel frets on it. I measured the thickness of it. It's 0.84 at the first fret all the way up to 0.98 at the 12th fret. So really beefy. It's got a nice kind of C-ish shape to it, a little bit more on the U side, but this is going to be our starting point here, and I can't wait for it. We're going to have to add some finish to it, although when it comes to roasted maple, you don't need to add a finish. We are going to go ahead, though, and add some true oil. That is my preferred way of going about things. And then we're going to need a few other things, because we do have a pre-slotted bone nut here. I have files. If you do not have files, that's something that you're going to have to, at the end of the day, once you're all finished with assembly, bring it into a qualified tech or a luthier and have them really dial that in, because that is also extremely vital to making sure your guitar is playing at its best. But on a more basic level here, you need tuners. But not only do you need the tuners, you need the ferrules for the tuners, which are in here somewhere, I promise. Yeah, so you need these ferrules. So what will happen is the tuner will go in on the back, boom, and then the ferrule will go in on top with the washer on top of it right there. And we'll have to be able to screw in here. One thing that I always recommend having whenever you're going to be doing woodworking, if it's not already pre-slotted, and most necks are not going to be pre-slotted to fit tuners in them unless they already come with tuners on them, you want to have a little bit of wax. You can get this from a candle that you have lying around your house. It's going to be the easiest, most accessible thing for people. And you want to put that on each screw, so when you are drilling your pilot holes, you're not potentially cracking the wood and having splintering going on or anything crazy like that. Because again, especially with roasted maple, you can't undo that. These necks do not come with the slots either in order for them to mount into the body and connect. We're going to have to do the same thing with that. But in order to do that, we're going to need the neck plate. And on top of the neck plate, said screws, 4 of them. And of course, a big old bag of little screws. I'm going to be using these to attach the pickguard to the guitar, but I have more than enough to do that in here, so we'll have plenty left over that I will keep, and they come in handy when you least expect it when you're working on these instruments. Final thoughts here. Know your limitations, but don't be afraid to try something new so long as you take your time with the build. If you've never done a wiring harness before, that's a little bit more of a lower risk thing, because if you burn out a potentiometer, you really screw things up, you're only talking about a few bucks. So experiment away with stuff like that. But other things, you really want to make sure that you feel comfortable doing them, or when you're ordering the parts, have them already done for you. I'm going to bring this up one more time here when it comes to the body. The bridge. If you do not feel comfortable, if you do not have a drill press, if you do not have a router, if you do not have some sort of template like an acrylic one Stumax sells that you can put on here to make sure you're going to get it right and get it straight, don't do it. Order one of these bodies that has these holes already drilled out for you. It's not worth the risk. You could potentially damage it. And again, I'm stressing this, I think, for the third time in this video. Just makes your life a little bit easier for me. I look forward to the challenge, and I have the tools needed to do it. And then the same thing here when you're working on the neck. This is a lot less kind of risky here, because the worst that's going to happen is it's going to splinter a little bit unless you go way too hard, which you shouldn't do. You should always take your time, especially when you're drilling initial holes and then you're doing your finalized holes. Attach some wax to it. Go slow. Make sure it's connected well into the actual pocket itself. And then for the actual tuners, you just want to take your time. Make sure things are straight. Don't rush anything. Have fun. It's a lot of fun, and I can't wait to get started on this. On the next video installment of this series, this is where we're going to start. We're going to start with the neck. We're going to be shaping this thing, and that's something that I'm really stoked about. I do not have a belt sander, but I do have a way that I want to go about doing this, and I'm really feeling confident that I'm going to have a really good positive result. And also in that video, we're going to be applying the true oil finish. I'm going to be showing you how I go about doing it, and we're checking out before and afters of the actual visual effect that it has, as well as the feel effect. But that's it for episode 1, the overview. I hope that if you're new to this, that you took away at least one piece of information that will be useful to you when you're building your own guitar. And if you have a question about the planning or installation of certain parts when you are in the planning process, and I didn't address it in this video, feel free to leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer you down there. Thank you for watching, and again, thank you to everybody at Guitar Anatomy. Go check them out. Their stuff sells out quick. If you see a body in a color you like, you better grab it, because I actually had one I had my eyes on before I saw this one, and it was gone within 24 hours. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.